Welcome to the BSMS Virtual Open Day talk. My name is Darren. I am the admissions tutor, head of admissions at BSMS. So I'm going to talk to you for a little while about our medical school and what we're about and how we do things. We'll be joined towards the end of the webinar by two of our current students who will answer any questions you might have. In terms of questions, if you could use the Q&A button and put your questions in there. If someone asks a question that you're thinking you wanted to ask, you can upvote it so that it moves to the top. I'm not going to look at the chat, so don't put any questions in the chat. If you put it in the chat, it will just sit there until the end of the webinar. So make sure you use the Q&A for your questions. Okay. Right, I'll crack on. So welcome to this, as I said, welcome to the Virtual Open Day talk. This has become something we've had to get used to over the last couple of years, doing our open day presentations in the Zoom. Although a couple of weeks ago, we did do our first open day on site for a long time, which was really nice. But obviously not everyone could make that day, so hence we're here again on Zoom. So let's tell you a bit about who we are. We are a young medical school. We started life in 2003. So we're approaching 20 years. And you can see on the screen there, it's an equal partnership between the Universities of Brighton and Sussex and the local NHS trusts. So all of our students have the benefits of being members of two universities. This is our ethos statement. I'm not going to read this out. I'm going to assume that you're able to read quite adequately. The bit that I think is really important is those bottom two lines, though. And that's our commitment to equality and diversity. And that commitment manifests itself in our selection of students and our student body. It is part of how we recruit our staff. It filters into our teaching, and ultimately equality, diversity, and everybody have an equal opportunity is what we want all of our graduates to remember when they get into the world of work and become doctors. So trying to get into medicine is competitive. You should already know that. And it's not getting any less so. You can see from the stats on the screen there that actually numbers of applications have been steadily rising, and you've got nearly a 10,000 increase in applicants from 2019 to 2021. So 2021 deadline are the folk who hope to start in September. So we've had a steady rise in applications to study medicine in the UK. And that's been reflected in our numbers as well. So for 2022 entry, we've seen a steady rise, and we had just under 1,900 applications from home students, just under 400 applications from overseas students. We have 193 places for home students and 10 places for overseas students. So you can see we are fairly competitive. So I'm going to give you a few reasons about why you should consider BSMS if you're not already doing so. One of the things that we are particularly proud of, and we think is a really good start point for trying to show you that BSMS is a good choice of medical school, is the National Student Survey. So each year, final year students across the whole of the UK in every degree subject at every university are asked to complete the National Student Survey. It is an anonymous piece of feedback about everything to do with the course that the students have taken. That's teaching, resources, assessment, feedback, everything you can think of. And you can see there that our graduates each year, overall satisfaction for everything that they've had from BSMS is constantly over 90%, 99% overall satisfaction for everything BSMS does in 2017, and slightly tailed off a little bit last year, 96% national average. That makes us consistently one of the top placed degree courses, yet alone medicine degree courses in the UK. So I think that suggests that we do something right. If every year our graduates tell the world how satisfied they are with the education they've had from BSMS, then I think that's a pretty good advert for considering studying with us. Let's have a quick look about how we deliver our curriculum. So you might hear some rain. It's absolutely throwing it down here. There's a strong emphasis on developing your clinical skills, and that will start very early. That will start from the beginning. We integrate our teaching. So we integrate the clinical skills, as I've just said, right through the first 2 years. So instead of the traditional pre-clinical and then clinical years, your lectures are enhanced by doing clinical skills throughout your first 2 years. We also still use full cadaveric dissection for some of our anatomy teaching, and anatomy plays an important part of your first 2 years. We've got a wide variety of teaching methods, including a large array of student-selected components. You'll find this at other medical schools, but we think we've got a really good, diverse choice in those first 3 years for you to pick some student-selected components. They're only a small part of each term, so one session a week, but the choices, they link to your module you're on. So for example, heart, lungs and blood, which you do in term 2 of the first year. In the past, we've had creative writing, teaching secondary school kids about the heart, drawing comics, creating animations about how the heart works, plus more traditional, if you like, clinical ways of learning. We still try wherever possible to have small group teaching, and that allows us to have a friendly and supportive atmosphere throughout the school. There's regular opportunities for our students to feed back to us, and obviously we will feed back to you. And there's a lot of emphasis placed on working with your peers and supporting each other. And you'll do a research project at all med schools. Our 4th year research project, again, we're really pleased and proud of the options that we give, and there's a wide variety of options available. So let's think about how our course is structured. So in years 1 and 2, you're primarily on campus at Falmer. So if you don't know Falmer, it is a 9-minute train ride from the city centre of Brighton and Hove. The Sussex campus, which is the building in the picture there, that's our teaching building. That's just used for us. You'll spend some time, about 1 day a week, across the road at the University of Brighton campus. It's a 10-minute walk away. In years 3 and 4, which is phase 2, primarily at the Royal Sussex County Hospital in the centre of Brighton, but we also use the Princess Royal Hospital in Haywards Heath, and there is a possibility of clinical placements spreading out further afield by the time you get to us and by the time you get to 3rd and 4th year. Oh, sorry. And then in year 5, your clinical placements spread further afield. You can see out to Hastings to the east, out to Chichester in the west, and heading north up to Haywards Heath and Red Hill. So this is what your first couple of years will look like. You can see there's a clinical and community practice module that runs through the whole academic year for both years 1 and 2. And there's a personal and professional development module which runs through the whole of the 2 years. In fact, it runs through the whole course. Your first term, your first module in year 1 is Foundation of Health and Disease. That gets everyone up to speed. You'll go away for the winter break and then come back in January. And there's a jump in the levels of work. So you'll go from first year undergraduate level teaching to second year undergraduate level teaching and learning with heart, lungs and blood. And then the trajectory continues upwards in terms of what's expected of you. You can see at the end of each year, there's an integrated KT. So that's the knowledge test. Those are your exams at the end of each year that you need to pass to progress. At the end of second year, there's also what we call an OSCE, an objective structured clinical examination. And that is a test of your clinical skills and of your personal skills and your interactions with people. Phase 2, so this is where most students really start to get excited because it's predominantly clinically based. You can see you've got your modules of medicine, surgery, and elderly medicine, psychiatry. Running through the whole year is SBM, so that's the scientific basis of medicine. That's the science behind the things you're learning on the wards and in the clinical settings. A therapeutics module, which runs through the whole year. And then again, personal and professional development. You can see sandwiched at each end, you've got more clinical and community practice, and you've got another OSCE and another knowledge test at the end of the year. I'll just give you a bit of an idea around what you'll do in each of your placements throughout the year. You can see cardiology, respiratory medicine, wood medicine, general medicine, lots of surgery there, different types of surgery. And it's important to remember that when you get to the third year, your placements will take you out of Brighton and Hove. So I'm making a point to tell you about this now because increasingly each year students come to us and they then, that's how should we put it, they're not very happy when their placements aren't on their doorstep and they have to travel. That's the way of the world, and it's going to be like that when you come to us. We can't guarantee who's going to be able to provide us with a placement opportunity in 3 or 4 years' time. The NHS is under increased pressure, as you know. That's been made worse by the pandemic. And there are some placement providers who no longer can take medical students. So we need to give you placement and clinical opportunities. So it means we may have to send you further afield from Brighton and Hove. We pay for your travel, so you don't need to worry about that, but you do need to be aware that it may happen. There you go, and there's just a little map just to show you the centres we're going to use throughout the counties of West and East Sussex. So at the end of third year, there's an opportunity for some of you to intercalate. So intercalation means you take a year out of studies. Sorry, I think I'm going to sneeze. Oh, sorry. You take a year out of your studies to complete the final year of a BSc, a Bachelor of Science degree, or you could do an MSc. It's optional. You don't have to intercalate at all. I think one of the students joining us later has just finished their intercalation. So if you want to ask any questions about that, they will be able to answer them for you. Don't worry about it too much now. We will obviously give you a lot more information about this when you're in your second year, so you can start to think about it and start to plan if it's something that you want to do. But it's an option if you wish to take it. So it's moving into year 4 now. We've got more specialist rotations running through the year, and you can see the list at the bottom of the screen: dermatology, pediatrics. You have your individual research project, which I mentioned earlier. More personal and professional development. And again, once again, at the end, an OSCE and a knowledge test that you need to pass to progress to your final year. And the final year, that's the business end of the degree, isn't it? You know, it's sometimes referred to as the apprenticeship year. You could imagine it as being unpaid labor, if you like. It's a lot of on-the-job clinical work where you're putting into practice the things you've learned, you're observing, you're helping, you're on ward rounds, you're part of a firm, and you're really at the business end of things in hospital settings. So you can see you've got your 5 core rotations, 4 weeks each. And as I said, they may well be dotted around. So you might be in Red Hill or you might be in Hastings. And if that's the case, then we provide hospital accommodation for you, so you don't have to travel each day to get to those placements. You can see there that we give you a little bit of time off between the attachments and revision, and you're revising for the MLA. So the MLA, which is the medical licensing assessment, basically replaced finals exams. So it's been brought in by the General Medical Council, and what it means is all graduates around the UK, are doing the same exams at the end of their degrees at the same time. There's a little bit of a gap there, which you can see before we do Foundation Zero and the elective. So Foundation Zero is an 8-week stint where you'll be on a clinical placement each week, focused on a particular issue, a particular specialism or condition, but with 1 day a week back on campus just to do a little bit more theory behind it and to discuss what you've learned and in symposia and things like that. And then there's the clinical elective placement. So that's an opportunity to go and do medicine somewhere that isn't Brighton and Hove for 6 weeks. So a lot of students will go overseas, perhaps to the developing world where they can use their skills to make a difference and to help a resource poor nation. But you don't have to go overseas. So if you're sitting there thinking, I can't afford to go traveling to do 6 weeks, you can stay in the UK, and a lot of students do, and that can be just as beneficial to them and to their future careers. And then there's a little bit more of a gap before graduation. So the one thing I'll just mention there, right at the start of the year, towards the end of 4th year, we talked to you about your applying for your foundation jobs. So you have to, when you graduate, you'll go off and you will be a doctor. You will graduate, you'll register with the GMC, and you will start paid employment as a junior doctor as an FY1. So it'll be foundation year 1, moving into foundation year 2, and then onto your specialist training beyond. You can see there's lots of ways that we assess: knowledge tests, essays, OSCEs, presentations, lots of things that we do, lots of different ways to assess you. And there's lots of feedback opportunities during the course from us and from you. And we have course reps and a student affairs committee, and lots of opportunities for students to tell us what the course is like for them. So let's have a quick look at what it's like to get in. I'll just let you have a quick look at the infographic. I will have a quick sip of coffee. So I'm aware that not everyone on the webinar will be taking A-levels, but as it's the qualification we see the most of, we're talking in terms of A-levels. If you're not doing A-levels, you need to think of the equivalents. And if you're really unsure, you can ask a question or you can email in to get clarification or check on the website. So we are looking for 3 A-levels, all at a grade A, biology and chemistry, and 1 other. We do not mind what the 3rd A-level is. It can't be general studies, but it can be anything you like. So if you are really interested in and really good at art, and you know you're going to get a grade A at A-level art, then by all means you can present that as your 3rd choice to us, and we will be happy with that. We don't really look very deeply at GCSEs. All we're interested in is whether or not you have the basics of English and maths. So it's a grade 6 or a grade B if you did them when there was an alpha mark. And that's a grade 6 in maths and English GCSE. We are not worried if you have got a hat full of grade 9s. It's 7, 8, 9 subjects. It's just the maths and English that we're interested in. We also use contextual data, so slightly lower offer grades. I'll talk a little bit more about contextual data in a second. We use the BMAT test to select for interview. We don't use anything else. Okay, so your qualifications are there just to make sure you're at the right academic level. They don't play into, once we know that, they don't play any further part in your application. The BMAT test is how we select for interview. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. We do not use the personal statement at all. No one at BSMS will ever look at your personal statement. We used MMIs, the multi-mini interview. That's 5 mini interviews, each lasting 10 minutes, where we will have a discussion around whatever it could be to explore your skills, your communication, your thinking, your ways of thinking, your values, the NHS values, your skills and attributes. Okay, so that's the important part. And any decision whether or not you're going to get a place at BSMS is based solely upon your interview and how you do. And then obviously, if you get your grades, you'll be joining us in September. So BMAT, you receive a score out of 28 for the BMAT. So it's 9 points for section 1, 9 for section 2, and a mix of an alpha and a numerical grade for section 3, but that effectively gives you 10 points. So we will just use that total and we will rank everybody according to their BMAT score, and we'll just go down the list until we reach the number of interviews we want to give. So you can see there, the average out of 28 to get an interview is around about 16. It went up a bit last year, 17.3 for home students, 19.5 for overseas students. So you don't have to smash the BMAT to get an interview, you just have to do reasonably well, get over 50% towards 60%, and you're on track. Now, we've made a slight change moving forward. So any of you who are applying in October, you'll be the first cohort that we've made the slight change to. We are doubling the score that we receive for the science section, the understanding of science. So you will still get a score out of 28, but we will double your science score. So your score will be out of 37. So that means we'll putting more emphasis on the understanding of science. So I've said that we have a contextual data element to our admissions. So we're looking to increase the number of students from non-traditional backgrounds get into interviews. So our contextual data is about getting tends to lower the BMAT threshold so that we can get students to interview. At interview, it's a level playing field. There's no concessions made to anybody, but those who get through the interview with contextual data will have a slightly lower offer. So it's a grade 5 in maths and English and an AAB offer A level. So there's the list of the things that we look for contextual data. Some of those things will be flagged automatically by UCAS. You can put some of those on UCAS as well, but some of them you will need to upload to us once you made your application. But again, we'll be in touch when we receive our application and tell you more about that. Okay, so that was a whistle-stop tour through BSMS and what we're like and what we're about. So let's bring up the questions. So if you have questions, now's the time to pop them into the Q&A. Is your curriculum case-based learning? There will be some case-based learning in there, but that's not our curriculum. It's a science-based, really. What are the entry requirements for India? I don't know off the top of my head. You'll have to look on our website. If you're not sure, then you can email us at medadmissions@bsms.co.uk. But all that information and Indian qualifications are listed on our website if you go to that. So what is BMAT? So the BMAT is the biomedical admissions test. It's the test, it's our entrance test, basically. There's 3 sections. There's the skills and aptitude section. So that's kind of like what UCAT is. So it's about looking at things and working out what's going on. There's the knowledge and understanding of science. So how your science knowledge is and how you apply your science. It's not just what you know about science, it's how you apply it. And there's a written element. So it's can you present an argument? Can you make an argument? And can you present it in clear, good written English? So those are the 3 sections of BMAT. And that, as I say, that's our tool for deciding whether or not you're going to get an interview. Okay. Do we accept IGCSEs? Yes, we do. What exactly you're looking for in international applicants? Well, we're looking for in international applicants, we are looking for the same as we're looking for everybody else. So you need to have a good aptitude for the sciences. You need to have the basics of maths and English. You, as an international, you will have to sit the IELTS exam, which is a test of spoken English, listening English, and written English, because obviously you're taught in English. And then for the same as everyone else, you need to have a good understanding of the NHS. You need to have a good understanding of the values of the NHS. You need to understand the skill sets needed to be a good medical student and to be a good doctor. So yeah, we're not looking for anything different from an international applicant than we would be from a home applicant. Everyone, the only difference for international and home applicants is you go into a different pot, you pay a different set of fees, and there's less places for an international applicant. But by and large, it's the same thing. So how long do you recommend to prepare for the BMAT? How long is a piece of string? I think the best advice I can, and maybe we can get, I can see we've got Rebecca, one of our students, in. Maybe she can give us her thoughts on that in a minute. I would suggest that now you look at the BMAT website. The BMAT website will tell you how to prepare for the test. It has a number of past papers. It's also got the presumed knowledge guide, and that's really one of the most important things you can look at. So the presumed knowledge guide is exactly what it says on the tin. It's telling you what they think you should know in order to do well in the test. So you can go through the presumed knowledge guide, and anything you're not sure of, you can go away and read up on and revise. Okay, so I think have a look now, see where your gaps in knowledge are, and then work out how long you need to work on it. The test is at the end of September, so it's going to come round quite quickly, so you probably do need to start now. Rebecca, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on how you prepare for BMAT and what you did.
Oh, I had this really good book. It was called 700 BMAT questions, and I just did a load of them every day. And I have essays too. Definitely practice the essays because that's tricky. But yeah.
Yeah, I think thanks for that. I think that's really it about it. It's same with anything. It's just, it's practice, isn't it? It's doing past questions, having a thought about how the exam works, how they ask it. So the thing about the science questions is they're asked in a way that you may not be used to. So they're not asking you what is, I don't know, osmosis. Tell us what osmosis is. They're asking you to apply it. So it's how would you apply something in a certain way in a setting. So it's taking it beyond what's up here and applying it in perhaps a practical sense. And that's what sometimes catches people out. So that's why the past papers are really important, just to get used to the different way they ask the questions. Cool. I don't know, anything to add, Rebecca, before I move on?
I would just say, because I fell into this trap, if you're not doing any of the science subjects for A level, pay really close attention to that one, because I completely messed up all the physics. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So if you're not, that's another good point. If you're not doing physics, then you may want to brush up on that. It's only at a level just above GCSE. It's not, it's not rocket science level of study. So you should be able to pick it up quite quickly. If you're an able scientist on track for A levels or the equivalent, you should be able to pick it up and do well. Okay, what is the area and cost of living like? Okay. I'll let Rebecca chip in a minute. You have to know that Brighton is the most expensive place to be a student outside of London in the UK. It's an expensive city. That's partly because of the city. It's a good place to live. It's on the south coast. It's sunny. It's got very good transport links to Gatwick, to Heathrow, to London. I mean, if you get the right train, you can get to London in just under an hour. It's a tourist destination. It's the one of the top 5 places in the UK to have your hen do or your stag do. There's famous clubs and pubs, and there's a pier. The list could go on and on and on. So it's a very popular city. So it's not cheap. You need to be aware of that. Maybe Rebecca can just, from her perspective, perspective, tell us what it's like for her in terms of living in Brighton and what it's
Yeah,
like.
like Brighton itself's great, like for a student. There's always stuff to do, you know, if you want to do something in the evening, there's always something. So that's really great. It is expensive. Um, yeah, I think it's a good place, and the campus is lovely too, which is nice. But yeah, that's expensive. Although you can find some good deals on houses, so that's quite good. But other than that,
Yeah, I think what you need to know, I mean, Brighton as a city, it's got 2 universities. There's a big student population. So there are a lot of landlords out there who want to rent to students. There's not many who are a bit unscrupulous. Most landlords now have switched on enough to know they've got a good provide a good level of accommodation and a good fair deal to students, because otherwise they're just going to get a bad name and no one will go to them. So and the thing for landlords as well is students are only there for part of the year, and they're gone in the summer when we've got lots of tourists coming in. So actually they can rent that out. So again, it's important for landlords to have a decent standard of accommodation. You can get accommodation locally and privately that's annual. You can stay there all year. You know, it doesn't have to be just term time. You know, there's all sorts of things you can do. You can get accommodation right next to the hospital. When it was announced that BSMS was coming into existence, lots of canny landlords bought up a lot of the housing around by the hospital to turn into student accommodation. You are eligible for campus-based accommodation for the first year. So yeah, there's lots of ways that you can do that. Okay. Are European students considered home students or overseas students? So that's dependent on your status. It's got complicated, as a lot of things have since Brexit. So the best way to do that actually is to email us, and then we can have a proper conversation with you via email to work out whether or not you'll be classed as a home student or an overseas student. I can't tell you directly, but you know, we are still having European students classed as home students, but it does depend on your status, and we can't do that without a few questions. Okay, so if you resit an A level, does it affect your chance of getting in? No. Okay, so we will allow you, if your offer is if you're with your first A levels you've got AAB and you're not considered for contextual data, we will allow you to resit one A level, providing you've only dropped 1 grade. Okay, so unless you've got really compelling mitigation, so if you know if something drastically went wrong, you know, and it had a major impact on your A levels, then you can get in touch and we will consider it. I'm not going to tell you right now that will change things, but you know, students who've had to contend with serious illness, maybe hospitalization, that's, you know, we'd be sympathetic to that sort of thing. Okay, so yeah, you can miss out on 1 and drop 1 grade. Cool, right, so Samantha's joined us by the looks of it, so I'll let her give a wave, and when we've got another question that's pertinent to students, we'll have another voice on it. Do you accept resits for GCSEs? Yeah, that's fine, we're not worried about that, as long as you get the grades that we want in maths and English. What IELTS score do I need? So you need to score 7 in each section, and you need to get 7 overall. So that's what we do. So Samantha's here twice. That's really confusing. Good. Oh gosh, blimey, she's gone again. Right, one of us here. What weight do predicted grades hold for initial offers? Well, you have to get them, basically. So if you need to be predicted 3 A's or AAB if you're contextual data, and that will be your offer. So that's that. And as I said earlier, the MMI is the important bit. Do we mix with other students during lectures? Nurses, physios, no, you won't with them. You might encounter some of them when you're on clinical placement, but you don't actually mix. I think second year you might do something with the neuroscience students still. I don't know, it's been a while since I've looked at that part of it. Rebecca's nodding.
Yeah, so the neuroscience module in year 2, we do it with the neuroscience students, and in year 2 we also have something called interprofessional education for a week, and then we mix with the physios and the OTs and stuff for that week. But yeah,
cool. Excellent. Right, thank you. What emphasis you put on UCAT? None at all. We don't use the UCAT. Do you accept 17-year-old applicants? If you turn 18 during the first year of study, that's fine. You have to turn 18 during the first academic year. So if that's the case, then you can apply as a 17-year-old. Would learning take place in small groups frequently? What depends what you mean by frequently. What's your experience been for the last year, Rebecca? And we'll come to Sam Mount. Intercalating,
yeah, we have quite a lot in our kind of science modules. We have these tutorials, which are small groups, and then every Thursday we have a small group session as well, on kind of clinical stuff.
Yeah, and again in small groups, you know, you're in a small group for dissection. You're around a cadaver. I can't remember how many there is now. 8, I think. Normally 8 of you, something like that. And you will work in that same group for your dissection. So yeah, wherever we can, we try and do small group stuff, you know, and you'll be in a small group for some of your ward rounds. So it will vary. Samantha, hello. You just intercalated, haven't you? Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm still down in Plymouth.
Right.
I would say sunny Plymouth, but not very sunny today. So I've done 3 years in Brighton at BSMS, and I'll be going back into 4th year in September.
Cool. 3rd year experience, how much small group? What would you say?
I'd say there's quite a bit. So we have each, depending on which rotation you're on, you'll have small group clinical fellow teaching sessions. So it'll be, sometimes it's only 2 of you, sometimes it's a bigger group, maybe up to maximum, I think 6, I would say is the biggest group I've ever had. And that's where you have sort of time with a doctor who works clinically in that department, but is not working clinically at the time. So it's got specific time to teach you about things you need to cover in the curriculum. This isn't something that all medical schools have. So when I'm speaking to people in other med schools, this is something when I tell them, they're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. So it's something that has definitely, I think, been valued by students a lot and is being rolled out across different departments within the hospital. So I'd say that happens quite frequently. We also have some small group work on our lecture days in the afternoon. I'd say maybe less because mine was during COVID, but I think that is something that will be happening more now.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, things are changing. We're moving out of, obviously, in terms of education and how we deliver our things, we are probably back to normal, or how things were post-COVID. You know, the real impact is for us as a school trying to find placement opportunities. That's now the challenge for us, as I mentioned earlier. But, you know, in terms of how you're taught and how things are delivered, that's more or less back to pre-COVID ways. Okay. Do we accept the Welsh back? Yes, we do. Again, off the top of my head, I don't know what the offer would be. So if you drop us an email, we can tell you exactly what that is. We don't see it very often, which is why I can't remember what it is. Next question. What are the 5 interview topics? Don't know yet. Haven't written the questions. We will be doing that in September. I would just say to you, you know, keep up to date with what's going on in the world, not just in terms of medicine, not just in terms of health and research, but just things that are important, you know. So at the open day a couple of weeks ago, I was saying to the folk there, you know, if I was writing questions right now, I would probably write a question about the cost of living rise and what impact that's going to have on people's health, what impact is that going to have on society and the NHS, you know. And we'd expect you to think through that. We'd expect you to know that there's this issue around the cost of living. If you don't know about it, I don't know where you are. But, you know, things like that. So, you know, again, you know, in 2020, we did a last minute question because COVID was in the news. It hadn't properly bitten, but it was in the news in the January of that year when we were interviewing. So we quickly wrote another question about the spread of disease and epidemics and pandemics and vaccines and how that might look. So, you know, things might be relevant to the news. I don't know yet. You know, you can expect something that's ethical based. You might have something that's going to make you think around science, but not a science test. Again, maybe the application. So they will vary. They will vary. Where do students live throughout the course, and how close is the available accommodation to the medical school and hospital? So in year one, you have the option, if you want, of living on campus. That'll either be the University of Brighton or the University of Sussex. After that, it's in private accommodation in the city centre, and there's stuff on the doorstep, or you can be on the edge of the city, you can be next to the hospital, you can be next to the clubs, you can be next to the pier. There's all sorts of places. Maybe just Rebecca and Samantha might give you a little bit of insight of what it's been like for them.
Yeah, so I think people do really live in lots of places in Brighton. So in the first 2 years, it's quite normal to live either quite near the campuses up in Falmer, and so you can walk into campus, or you can live, most of us lived on Lewis Road, which is the main road down into town, those sort of side streets off of that, where you get a bus into campus whilst you're in pre-clinical. Once you're clinical, most of us live by the sea, which is pretty luxurious. And that continues for sort of years 3 to 5, as your sort of main base for your lectures is on the seafront, as is the hospital.
Right. Rebecca, anything to add on that?
No, not really.
Okay, cool. I mean, as we've already mentioned, you know, getting accommodation, you know, unless you leave it to the last minute, you may struggle. But you know, if you do it in good time, when you need to go into the private sector in the city with whatever friends you've made, if you do it in good time, you'll find something, and you may even get a choice or a number of choices. So yeah, if you leave it to the last minute, you might be in a bit of a bind. Are placements allocated to us, or do we get a chance to give any location preference? Well, they're allocated. You know, occasionally we may have students who, you know, maybe have caring responsibilities. If we know about things in advance and we think it's a reasonable request to ask to be somewhere, then we can do it. When it comes to the GP placements, we do have GP practices spread all around that help us. I know that we had a number of students did their GP placement in Exeter, you know, so, but it will depend if we've got a GP wanting to take students who can accommodate them. So again, that's something, you know, if you have a particular need or a particular reason to be somewhere, you need to tell us that as soon as possible, and then we can think about it. But I can't tell you now you will definitely get where you want to go. Most students will be told where they're going, so that's it. But you know, it's part of the joys of being a medical student, because the placements are fun, aren't they, Rebecca? Aren't they? Samantha, they're nodding vigorously about how much fun they have in placement. Do you do a full body dissection? Well, you have a cadaver, and you will dissect that cadaver. So again, I think the students probably best. It's a long time since I've been in the DR, so they might share their experience with you on that.
Yeah, you do full body dissection. This was one of the reasons why I chose BSMS over some of my other options. So the other places that I could have gone, I felt were quite similar in other ways, but the fact that you got to have a cadaver and experience what things actually look like in the body, as opposed to pro-sections where anatomy has already been cut and made to show you the anatomical structure you're learning about, or images and virtual bodies where people have very high-tech tables. I thought that wasn't going to be as helpful as a doctor or a surgeon if you're actually looking at these things for real and what they look like. So yeah, you do get to do that. I'm unsure if this has changed, but when I was in first year, Rebecca can help because she's year below, we had the same body throughout the year. So that was quite special in a way, because it meant that the donor was, that you sort of had that connection with them and what they'd done to help enhance your education.
Anything to add, Rebecca, on that?
Yeah, I think it has changed slightly now. There is a lot of prosection, but I think certain modules are dissection and some are prosection now. So like the difference is prosection is already prepared for you to study from. They're really enjoyable. We have kind of junior doctors come and facilitate it, and will kind of teach us all kinds of bits and pieces. So it's really fun. not that many medical schools do it anymore. So it's definitely a really strong point of BSMS.
Great, thank you. Dissection is one of the most amazing learning experiences anyone will ever have. It's just incredible. Can you recommend any good websites for BMAT practice? Yeah, the BMAT website. Go to that. They've got everything you need. Yes, you can buy a book, as Rebecca said. I think that's the only expense you need to justify is a book if you wish to do that. The BMAT website has all the materials you need to prepare and to practice. You do not need to spend money on it. You do not need to go on any courses or pay hundreds of pounds to be told how to pass the BMAT. Just do your own hard work and you will be fine. Can you tell us about useful work experience prior to interview? I don't have a medical family or friends to access hospital-based work experience. Okay, we have a virtual work experience tool, which you can find on the BSMS website. We've been using, that's been live since the start of the pandemic. There are medical schools who have a work experience requirement, a specific work experience requirement, who will accept our work experience tool as valid work experience. Okay, so that if you have to meet work experience requirements, if you show them the certificate that you can earn from our tool, they will accept that as work experience. For BSMS, any experience where people are looked after is of value. It doesn't have to be hospital based. It doesn't have to be clinical. It just has to have. You just need to know what it's like for people to be careful. But what I will also say is we do not have a work experience requirement. We want you to have an insight into medicine. So understanding medicine, understanding of how medicine works in practice, and understanding of the role of the doctor. Now, yes, work experience is a good way of doing that, but you don't have to get your insight from work experience. You can get it in any way, shape or form. So I'm not going to dwell on that because I don't want people getting hung up about it. As long as you can show some insight, you can get that from good old fashioned reading, do our work experience tool, maybe talk to medical students if you know any, talk to doctors if maybe ask, if you go and see your GP, which is difficult, I know, maybe ask them a question about things. So there's lots of ways to do it. So I'm just holding my hand up. My son's just come downstairs shouting. Samantha, you got your hand up. Do you want to add something?
I just want to say, so I also don't come from a medical family. So I know that sometimes it can feel quite difficult if you don't have those ties. But what I did, and I know this will have been different because of COVID, but possibly even easier, is quite a lot of volunteering. So the reason I got work experience in a hospital was because I volunteered with them for lots of months before on the ward. And that's quite a good way in. So if it's possible for you guys to do that, or if it's volunteering, as Darren says, in a completely different role that shows this understanding that you're caring and that has developed all of your communication skills, all of that will be helpful. So yeah, don't worry about that too much.
Cool, brilliant, thanks for that. What sort of work experience would be beneficial? Well, I think we've covered that, and how many hours, and I've covered that. We don't have a requirement. Is IGCSE English grade 7 enough for an English requirement for international students? Do I need to take the IELTS? If English is a second language, if it's not your first language, then yes, you will need to take the IELTS as well. What are the pros and cons of studying at BSMS? Well, there are no cons. Come on, let's be fair. Pros, I think I've told you a bit about what we do and how we do things and what our graduates think about us. I think this is an opportunity. This is where Samantha and Rebecca can be of use. Pros, what would you say?
One thing I'd say is it's a really, really lovely, friendly environment. Like the year group are nice. You hear about all the competitiveness at other medical schools, and that's just not really a thing here. Everyone looks out for each other, which I think is great. But yeah.
I think so I've already said that I like the dissection. I think that it is I agree with Rebecca. I think people are friendly here, and I think people do look out for you and will be kind. I think on placement, you never, like, people are willing to teach you, people know who you are, it's because it's a teaching trust. Other places, they don't have necessarily the same opportunities, or have some like horrific stories, and I'm like, that would not happen in Brighton. and I really like being by the sea, which is lovely. So Brighton is a nice place to live. Cons, I wouldn't say there's any cons about like BSMS that I'm thinking of. The only thing I think people should be aware of is maybe that Brighton is in the southeast, so it's a little bit more pricey.
Yeah.
Living wise.
Yeah. I think we certainly made that point earlier, didn't we? It's an expensive place to be a student. So yeah, I guess you could say that is a con actually. But hey, the pros would outweigh that, I would say. Okay, I'm just going through the questions. There's a lot of people asking stuff that I've spoken about and that I mentioned in the talk. So that either says I'm boring and they weren't listening, or they weren't listening. So let me just get to them and then I'll just going through. Okay, someone's already asked about A-level resits. I'll repeat it. If you drop one grade at one A-level, you can resit. I've already answered the question about number of international places. I've mentioned it more than once. 10 international places, it's always 10. How would you suggest preparing for the interview? Well, again, read. There's really not much other prep you can do, because, well, you can't really just do practice interviews. Just get into the practice of people asking you questions and you thinking about it and answering it. Just be comfortable speaking, having a 10-minute conversation with someone you don't know. And if you do some interview practice, do it in this medium because it's a virtual interview. So just be comfortable talking to a screen. Okay, so that's really the best way to prepare is do your reading and keep answering questions. Yes, I'm recording this. You'll be emailed the link. Do it, students integrate with non-medics. Yeah, we've done that. And yeah, I mean, in the first year you're going to live on campus. You'll live in medical student flats. It just be medical students in the flats. That's done not to keep you away from other students, but it's done because of the demands of the course for medics. So you've got a lot more contact time than some of the other students on the courses. Some of the, and I'm not picking on history, but a history student will not have as many lectures as you will. It won't have as much contact time as you will, and possibly won't have as many demanding assignments as you do. So that first year is about you being in accommodation with someone and other people who've got the same demands and experiences. So you'll all know, actually, we've all got a very important test tomorrow. So we may have an early night. You may not, who knows? And you're not disturbed by the history student who doesn't have anything to do coming in the early hours of the morning. That's why that's done. But, once you go into the private accommodation, you share with whoever you like. And then there's opportunities to join clubs and societies so that you can get to know other people. Okay. What's the dropout rate in recent years? Well, the dropout rate, there's always going to be some students who decide actually medicine isn't for them. They're not many at all. And there will be students who unfortunately fail academically, but it's not a case of fail something and you're gone. There's opportunities to resit modules, maybe resit the year if you have to. We're not in the business of throwing people out the minute they start to struggle. That's not what it's about at all. The dropout rate isn't huge. It averages about 2 to 3%. It's a very difficult thing to give you an exact answer on. And it's been compounded over recent years because things have been different for everybody. I think it's fair to say the further along the course you get, the less chance of you dropping out. If you can get through the first 2 years academically, you're in a good place to pass everything else. And it is very, very rare for anyone to fail final year. If you get to the final year, you're pretty much going to do it. It does happen, but it is very, very rare. So I wouldn't worry about dropout rate. If you're the right person for us and we think you're the right person, you're academically able, that shouldn't be a problem. How does intercalation work? Well, as we've already said, Samantha, I'm just going to hand straight to you on that one.
So intercalation is basically, for anyone that doesn't know, a 1-year degree or master's that you can do in the middle of your medical degree for 1 year between 3rd and 4th year. It is capped at 40%. So depending on the number of people in your year, for our year, I think that was like maximum of 80 people can go away to intercalate. And that is to prevent there being like lots of people when you come back into the year below and with overcrowding. So if you've got a massive year, that would obviously put a lot of pressure on the placements team and reduce the experience of what you're getting, because you'd have a lot of people in one placement, and we don't want that. So intercalate. So the question of how you know like who they decide being allowed to intercalate is normally based on your grades and your rankings from 2nd and 3rd year. My year also included 1st, but that was because of COVID. So you put in a form to say you'd like to intercalate, and they look at all of them, they see who's in this top 40%, and if you sit within that, you can intercalate. If you don't, you go on a reserve list. People then change their minds. You then are allowed to intercalate because the spaces become available. You don't have to stay at BSMS to intercalate. Other med schools will make you go through an interview process just to be allowed to intercalate outside of their medical school. So there's loads on offer at BSMS that if you do want to go somewhere else to live at home or to experience a different city or different place in the country, then you're perfectly able to do that. And yeah, that's it.
Brilliant. Okay. Social life for medics, again, over to you two.
Yeah, it's good. There are lots of med school socials that people go along to, and also like you're part of both unis, so you can go to any society from both unis, which is fun if you want to mix with some non-medics. So it's quite good.
Samantha, anything to add? No.
If you're non-drinker, I don't drink. And that sounds horrific, like clubbing and socials and stuff like that, which it did to me a little bit. But we also have lots of societies that are a little bit calmer. We have on MedSoc, we have reps that are sort of like non-alcoholic socials, and there's lots around people to make friends with and get involved with. So that is in that sort of more relaxed state. So like choir, there's like film screenings people do, there's lots of talks. There's Tiva Tarina, which is if you're worried about anything, you can go and chat with them. And they also do like there's a craft, BSMS arts and crafts. They have loads of stuff. And in comparison to other places that I've experienced this year, not naming any other medical schools, we have a lot more societies that are really active, and I think that makes a massive difference to university experience. So there's lots to do.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, we're back to in person. We're not online anymore. And as things go sideways, that will be how we do things. Yes, there's lots of sporting opportunities. As I said, you got 2 universities. BSMS has what's called MedSoc, which is its umbrella organisation that sits within the student unions. It organises socials, societies. It maintains the sport teams, and we've got rugby, netball, cricket, football. I don't know what else. I think once upon a time we had an ultimate frisbee team. I don't know if we still do. Hockey, they do all the sporting stuff. So yeah, lots of opportunities to get involved in sports and societies. So yeah, that's something to do. No, we don't do clearing. What else have we got? Are we nearly done? No, we don't consider the EPQ. Look at that. It's being answered as we talk. Look at that. You're on the ball, Samantha. Blimey. Yeah, I've already mentioned it's systems based. As an international student with AS A-level English, you will still need to do IELTS. Yep. Okay, I think. Are we nearly there? I think we might have done them all. I'm not sure. I've noticed that my little chat is flagged that there's stuff in the chat. As I said earlier, I'm not doing questions in the chat. So if you've written a question in the chat, you need to quickly put it in the Q&A because it won't get answered otherwise. I'm just scrolling through to see if we've done all of the questions. I think.
There's one about pastoral care.
Oh, is there? I missed that one.
That's just come through now.
Oh, was it? Okay, thank you. I'm scrolling from the top just to see what's pastoral care like. For example, I know we have medical school families. Okay. Yeah, so look, we have a in-house student advice team. That's my other hat. I'm also the head of student welfare. So we have an in-house student advice team with a number of advisors to give guidance on all sorts of issues, be that academically, financial, housing, health, all sorts of things that we will help students with. So pastoral care is really important. We do have a medical school family. I'll let Rebecca or Samantha tell you a little bit more about the medic parents.
This is the funniest thing about being a medical student, because I very often, because my medic family is quite close, I'll very often be like, oh yeah, my granddaughter, and everyone will look at you and think you've gone mad. So basically, you marry your friend, and then you get medic children in the year below, and then in the year below that you get medic grandchildren, and it's sort of just, you might make a group chat and you'll have meals or games nights or study sessions, whatever you want to do, and it's just a way for you to get help academically, so looking at essays and just learning about university, because obviously it's a big change. It's just a way to give peer-to-peer support, and it's really fun because you don't normally get paired with like-minded people, and it's quite a nice way for us to integrate across the years, especially as we're getting a bit bigger as a med school. And I've made some really good buddies through it. I've met some really lovely people, my children. So it's really funny and it's really good fun.
It's really interesting. So when we started that, it was only going to be medic parents. So the year group above being parents to the new students coming in. And when the third cohort came in, those who had been medic parents said, oh no, we don't want to stop this. We want to be grandparents now. So it has just evolved and carried on.
Yeah, I'm like Grandma Samantha in a chat, like Grandma Samantha and the kids of COVID. So it's good fun.
Is there a tennis team at BSMS? I don't think there is, but that doesn't mean there can't be in the future. You know, that's if you can find people who want to play tennis, MedSoc will help you get a team and help you play tennis. You know, it can be done. You know, that's part of MedSoc and student societies and student unions, is to help you do the things you want to do. Oh goodness me, we're getting a lot of questions coming in now that we've already spoken about. Do you look at BMAT? Yes, it's the only thing that we look at to select for interview. We get the BMAT results just before you do. Any dance performing arts opportunities? Yes. Again, Rebecca, Samantha, do you want to talk about cabaret and review and other types of things?
So yearly, we haven't had cabaret in a while actually because of COVID, but every year people put on a kind of comedy skit show called The Review. Lots of singing and dancing. It's very silly, it's very fun. So yeah, that's definitely something you probably want to get involved in if you're into that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's that, and there's society. Yeah, The Review is always an occasion. I haven't been for a long time, but it's always an occasion that students and staff enjoy. How on your course do you meet patients almost straight away? So you've got integration really early on into that. I think we're done now, aren't we? I think we've done all the questions. Okay, I'm going to give you one opportunity to quickly type in a question if you have anything, because I'm pretty sure we've done them all. I'm just scrolling through. Samantha's really been useful and typed a few answers in, I see, which is great. How can you apply if you don't know your BMAT results? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. It doesn't stop you applying. You know, you apply, you sit the test. You don't know your A-level results when you apply either. I'm not sure. I understand why you might worry about it, but you just apply and we get the results. You shouldn't. If you want to go to a university that sits BMAT, you shouldn't let not having your results stand in your way. You know, if you are good enough, if you have faith in yourself and you prepare, you should do well enough to get an interview. Simple as that. You know, you should be on track to get the A-levels needed. You know, if you're going to worry that you can't get a good enough score in BMAT, therefore you won't apply about knowing results, then maybe you shouldn't apply to medicine because you may not get your A-levels either. So yeah, just apply. If it's a school you want to go to that does BMAT, don't worry about that. Yes, we're going to email out the recording. Interviews will not be in December. No, I don't know when they're going to be yet. Probably January, February. I think that's it, isn't it? Do you only get one shot at BMAT? Yes. Yes, you've got to do IELTS if English isn't your first language. Yes, interviews are going to be virtual. Percentage of people taking elective abroad, I can't tell you because it hasn't happened abroad for a couple of years. Most will go abroad, but as I've already said, you do not have to. You know, a lot will stay at home. And again, wouldn't worry about that right now. The electives, a long way off. You've got to pass your medical degree before you worry about elective. So we'll talk to you about that nearer the time. If you do not go to school after year 13, where can I get the predicted grade? Whoever is, yeah, email us on that one, Thomas. That's the best one to do on that one. Okay. That looks to me like we're done. Okay, brilliant. I'm going to end it there in terms of questions. Have a look at our website. There's a lot of other things that you can do virtually. There's a virtual tour of the campus. There's a virtual tour of the anatomy lab. There's a virtual tour of accommodation. There's all sorts of things. There's interviews and videos from our students. You can download our prospectus if you haven't already done so. So have a look at our website. Go to the undergraduate admissions page and the entry requirements page, and also there's the virtual open day page with lots of other things. So thanks for joining us today. I hope it's been of use. Thank you to Rebecca and to Samantha for chipping in and adding to it. I'm going to end the call in a minute. Okay, everyone, hopefully we've inspired you to apply to BSMS, and if you do, or even if you don't and you go for medicine, best of luck with your endeavours in the future. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Bye now.